Testing 1, 2, 3. Oh, seem to have an echo now. Well, that's good, Matt. I've just discovered I have an echo coming from the iPhone. I'm just going to try and fix it. Uh, so I'll work on the audio in a second. So this is uh, the state of the tenement building at this point. I've added a pavement in, recessed it in a little bit. I've added a slate roof and weathered it. Now I have to do some touch up with the sills and finish off the chimney. But if any of you are familiar with the tenements in Glasgow and in this case Partick, this would look very familiar to you with the sandstone block building. Just get this back in place. Hello, Andrew and Matty Matt, near Smallwood Junction. Good evening. I'm just going to unplug the camera, the iPhone, and put in. Yeah, I'm still getting that echo. It's one of life's great mysteries. Well, it's all very complicated. It looks as if you have to continually have this iPhone plugged in. Oh, Andy, the EWS is awaiting the delivery of a brass 11-tooth cog, and you see the mallard sitting there. It has the same issue, and there are another couple of locos here that require that alloy or aluminium one to be replaced. So that's what I'm trying to do, or that's what I'm waiting on at the moment. I've cleaned and tested everything else on the EWS to no avail. Well, Matt, it's actually, I've cleared out some of the stuff down the station end to make it a little bit more presentable. The other end is a bit of a disaster. So anyway, we'll carry on regardless. I'm not clear on how this audio stuff works, because I would mute the microphone and the echo would still come through. Now in the foreground here, the Silver Link is awaiting a screw for in there. Otherwise it runs great. And these 3 4Fs all have the same issue. When I bought them at different times, couplings were missing. Now, I have a few couplings here that I may have to jerry rig to get them to work. Model Railway Unlimited said they had a couple they could send, but you know, it's very kind of them, but the cost of postage for a couple of couplings doesn't really pan out. So I'm grateful for the offer, but I'm going to try. I'm going to try and jerry rig something up. GWR Buckley, good evening. I hope you don't have that echo. I'm going to try and turn something down here. See, I'm not sure whether you're hearing the audio from my iPhone or you're hearing it from the MacBook Pro. It's always very frustrating. And the other thing is, you know, I've got a webcam, and that is the one that's got the view of the station. And there's a microphone in that, I discovered, so I did mute that. I'm not sure if it's Okay, thanks, Matt. Well, that tells me that the webcam was picking up audio, so I've switched it back on again. But on the yeah, okay, Matt. On the iPhone, I'm getting the echo there. Now, do you hear an echo? I guess that's the next question. Yeah, so it's trial and error with this. I didn't realise that the webcam, webcam is picking up audio, but it was. Now we're back on, and I guess Matt's hearing a little bit of echo. You know, I turned the volume down on the iPhone, but it still seems to be coming through, and I'm not really quite sure how this all works. You have to be an audio engineer as well as a model railway guy and everything else that goes along with it. So we've had a bit of rain here. We had a little bit of snow when we come back from the big trip, but it didn't stay. And now we've got the temperatures going up a little bit, and we're now in the rain season where it will clear out all the snow and all the sand that was deposited on the roads. Boilermaker Rick, I've known a number of boilermakers in my life, especially in the shipyards. So you're probably in good company. So yeah, as I said, the snow's just about gone outside, except for those areas that are shaded, hidden from the sun, and they're still kind of rock hard, and it'll take a little while for them to disappear, but that's a good sign. Did you get a chance to see the videos that I posted about the trip to HR trains and Hobby Lobby and such like? They were so interesting. Some fabulous looking locomotives down there, and so different from the British stuff. And I'd asked in one of the stores I was in, do you not get any British stuff in here? And they said, well, sometimes we do, but we just ship them off to eBay, because there's obviously not a market for them down there. So that Sir Nigel Gresley that's going around there, it falters on one point with one wheel on the loco. So I'm not really sure what that is. I just discovered that this morning. Tom Houston, how are you? Yeah, just I'll see if I can find something here. Yeah, big plug for Tom Houston. If I can get it out. Yeah, big shout out for Tom. Here are my magnets I received in the mail. They will be ideal for for remagnetising any of the locos that need a little bit of help. Oh, that was precarious. Yeah, so that webcam I've got, it doesn't have a screw attachment to it, so I'm presently balancing it on a box. Well, Tom, I got them on Amazon. I'll send you the link. I'll dig it out and send it to you. And this, the one you see here of me, is coming from the MacBook. Now, if I see if I can change that one to there you go. Now I've got it. So there you go. That's a bit better. So it's a case of manipulating all this electronic equipment and understanding what it does and what it doesn't do. Let me just get out. Mystic Railroad, good evening. How are you doing? And how is the weather your place? So the camera here is, that's another Logitech camera. So that's two of them that I have, and you know, I'll try and switch it up so that, I'm not sure if I can remove the iPhone. But that one is a Logitech Brio. So if two locos stop here. All very mysterious. Yeah, it's that one wheel on that Sir Nigel Gresley that keeps popping out. And so, how big is your yard? Because you railroad guys always seem to have big yards, and because you run big trains. And I'd said before, when we were in California, we drove from the coast out to Palm Springs, and in my rear view mirror I caught a train that was miles long. I couldn't stop the car because we're on the main highway there, and I was hoping to get a shot of it, but yeah, it just seemed to go on for miles, as far back into the horizon as I could see. Well, that's interesting because I'll see if I can move this around. Beyond that mess there, you can see I've got two main lines up there, and then each of them has two loops, and the whole idea was to use that for sidings. I'm not sure if that's the best layout. And one thing I need to do, I have to put a crossover back in here, as I have on the other side there. Move this out the way you see. See, I'm able to go from that line to the inside line that takes the train into the station. Anyway, that's enough of the messy side. You didn't come here to see that. And so, if I did do it before, I'd give a shout out to Triang Hornby parts and Tony at that store, who's helped me out and is sending over those brass cogs that I've been waiting on, and a couple of springs and brushes for a very reasonable price, because he said if it's under so many grams, it's a reasonable price, and then it goes up kind of exponentially from there. So I'm just going to pull this one in here for the moment. I'll change this one up. I don't want to be making too many changes, because it just becomes a bit problematic whenever something goes wrong like that. So the little pug is, I think it's overworked, pulling those 4 coaches. We'll see if it makes its way. No, it's hesitating at those points there. It usually does a good job, but I think that's just a little bit much for it. I'll give it a little bit more gas, that'll help it through. Yeah, there you go. Spinning its wheels. Yeah, it made it through that point. Just changing up here. Things going on behind my back here. I wasn't paying attention. Yeah, see the problem with having a small layout, now this is approximately 9 feet by 10 feet, is in my case, I like to run trains that are large. It reminds me of the big stations in Glasgow. But as a consequence, run into problems because get too many points. And if the points aren't 100%, I'll have situations like this coming up. And I've gotten to the point where I check all the gauges before I start in advance, but it might not always be the gauge. It can often be the hooks on the couplings are misaligned, or the points are out of alignment. Well, let's see. There's the growler. Good evening. Yeah, thanks. Those are really very simple. I downloaded the PDF files on the sides here and at the one end, and I stuck them onto phone core. Now, if we look at these ones here, this is the brick or stonework that was you can still find in Glasgow in many of the older stations, and they're just put onto foam core and weathered a bit. These, of course, are I think they were scale scenes, or 3DK is the other company. And then this is foam core, as you see, that I painted and weathered, and so it's very effective and easy to make. I seem to have an issue again. And some of these tankers that I have here, they've been weighted just to make them more stable, but I think it might create an imbalance in the train, because if it's hooked up to something that isn't weighted, it can cause it to turn over. And I've just noticed that one in particular, the Shell lubricating oil, which is an older model, was lifting up as it hits the point. Now that tells me that the outside diameter of the wheels are too large, and I think that might be an older Triang or early Hornby wagon, this one here. The desk camera, yeah. Yeah, so that's the main street, Metcalf, etc. And this item here, in Queen Street Station in Glasgow and others, you will see this sheet metal box that runs along the wall. I believe it carries cables, and I'd seen it in a photograph, and I decided to make it. So I took one of these baking sheets or baking boxes that you put a roast in, and I flattened it out totally, and then cut up sections, and then I was able to, that's problematic, that one. I'm just going to bring this in. I'll need to take a very close look at all these wagons and their couplings. Anyway, so I cut it up into lengths, but if another time I'll show you, I scribed on the inside of the tinfoil lines to represent the brake. I think I'll see if I can get you a better shot here. So I scribed on the inside of that box a joint, and then the X marking to represent the stiffening of the box, and then I placed that over a piece of foam core and then attached it to the wall. So it's a nice little effect. It's not perfect, but you know, from this distance it looks convincing. And I think that's the whole idea. I'm just going to leave that one there for the moment, and see if I can bring not really sure. Playing a dangerous game here. move this. Yeah. Yeah, so I knew that was going to happen. Just move these around. I'm still here, guys. I'm just trying to get this other train out. So, Clive, how are you on a Saturday evening in probably rainy Ireland? So it's always a bit of a gamble trying to get trains on the track here. only having one pair of hands. I don't have a control panel, everything's manual. And got to have eyes in the back of my head. Yeah, it's all very temperamental. I looked around the internet yesterday trying to see if there was a model railroad club that was open to the public this weekend, because I know they do that a few times a year. However, I couldn't find one. Yeah, I've got one right here. It just would be a bit of an effort because I'm trying to find which coach is off the track and yeah, some of these are worse than others. In fact, the Gresley coaches that I have are particularly troublesome. And what I did was I found a supplier in China that had a number of wheels available. So I bought some of them, and I also got new Hornby wheels, because the plastic wheels, as you know, become very brittle, and as a consequence they create problems on the track. I always have to keep my ear tuned to some rumbling or rambling on the track. Yeah, it's, you know, on the one hand, I like to have a few cameras going that everybody can see what's happening, but you know, I have to keep my eye on them, and then you know, if something goes wrong, it takes my attention away from the chat, and I like to try and get it fixed quickly, but it's not always that simple, as you all probably understand and appreciate. Yeah, Tom, you're right. I've got a couple of mainline coaches which are really very, very nice, and I got them so cheap from a guy. But they've got those kind of KD couplings or whatever they're called. so they don't fit in with the Hornby Triang stuff, and that's another chore that has to be done. So yeah, anyway, so today I worked on that tenement building, and we were putting down a baseboard for Stranraer town yard, then got some track down to make. Oh, that's great, Clive. I look forward to seeing those photographs. And guys, if you haven't seen what Clive is up to, ask him to send you a couple of photographs. It looks terrific, and I love the ferries that he's got in there, and the coaches with all the passengers. It's going to look outstanding when it's finished. Yeah, sorry about that. get to go and see one of them this weekend. Delays at Partickhill station. There should be an announcement about that. Anyway, I think there are sort of 4 model railroad clubs in the Toronto area, and I thought I would try and make a visit and see what I can see. I always like to go to these places because you never know what you're going to learn, and everybody like ourselves are always too happy to chat about it. Anyway, I searched the internet and I found these places, but their web pages are not up to date. They're still talking about COVID, which for the most part is no longer an issue here. And secondly, they only have public days a couple of times a year. However, what they do in terms of interested parties, if you are so inclined, you can call them and make an appointment to go and meet with them. Excuse me, and with a view, if you wanted to join, and then there would be an interim period, probationary period, where you'd be asked to attend a number of evenings and meet everybody and get some interaction, and then they would decide if you were the type of guy they would like to be in their club. And yeah, I get that. Excuse me, coughing. It's allergy season here. Now, I was never allergic to anything in Scotland until probably when after I came here, and well into my late 40s, that I began to get sort of allergies, like feeling as if I've got a spider's web on my face, and a headache, a stuffy nose at particular times of the year. So I'm kind of suffering with that right now. But you know, we'll grin and bear it, as they say. But you know, I guess you can't always have trains running, and so it's up to the station master to keep the conversation going, and that sometimes is challenging uh, because somebody might have left some stock in the wrong place. I'm just going to have to fix that. Somebody's in deep trouble. And you can hear the difference as the train passes through the station, because that's where I did some ballasting. And I was thinking about that for a list of things to do, that I might ballast the whole station. I'm not going to go all the way around the track. I'll just focus on the area where people would be able to see it when I'm filming. Oh, Tom, I saw a video today. A guy in your part of the country did this documentary about the Sunderlands that flew out into the Atlantic as cover for the convoys, which my dad was on, and they were based up there in the northwest of Ireland, and you know, this guy has done a number of videos, and he did this one great explanation. He used the drone so that you could see where all the concrete pads were, where they stored these aircraft, and maintenance areas, and where they'd be able to move them around. It was so interesting. And Tom Hanks made a movie about the Americans first going across the Atlantic, and as they were getting closer to Ireland, the U-boats came out to attack them, and they were saved by the Sunderlands because they came out and took care of business, and that was such an interesting video. You should have a look for the guy, and give him some support. Yeah, you know, I travelled to London in July 1969, and I believe it was a steam train, possibly to Crewe, and then it changed to an electric locomotive, because at that time the electric lines hadn't made it to Glasgow. We still lived in the dark ages in those days, as I say. But having said that, the line that goes along the north side of the Clyde where I lived, it was electrified in the mid 60s, and they got the what we always refer to as the blue train, which would make a nice little model, but it's not available. I think it's available only as a special order or something like that. I'm not sure, but yeah, I always remember that they changed the locomotive, and it was an electric loco at the time, and all I can remember was it was blue. So I'm sure if there's somebody out there who has that kind of data, they'd be able to go into their records and see, July 12th or 13th, something, right? The beginning of July. Because I worked in Clyde Bank, and they had the first 2 weeks of July off as a summer vacation. So it would have been the end of June, beginning of July, that I took that journey. And on the way back, I'd hooked up with a friend of mine later in London, and we went over to France hitchhiking, but that's a whole other story. On the way back, we travelled from King's Cross to Edinburgh, and there were 2 or 3 sailors in the cabin with us that were going back to Rosyth or further north. The Glasgow Fair was the second week, Tom. All my friends worked in Glasgow. I worked in John Brown Shipyard, and that was Clyde Bank. And as a consequence, I could never go on holiday with my friends, let's say. Yeah, different times. Yeah, Clive, that would have been so interesting to me at the time because, I was a ship draftsman. I never made it down there to that wrecking yard. I think there was some wrecking getting done up at Fast Lane, because I remember being up there and I saw. And I was much younger at the time, and I saw the remains of a ship up there. Well, guys, I've been on for over an hour, and it wasn't perfect. It wasn't 100%, but it's improving, let's say. And I'm going to work on a couple of things in the coming weeks. Is this echo? That's a big concern, and I think I may put that crossover back in on the one side, because I can't get that outside line back into the inside tracks without first coming into the station and coming through that way. I'll need to think that one through. I have thought about converting one of those loops into a main line, but a separate third line, but that would require some complicated points, maybe crossovers, I'm not sure. And then the other thing I'll work on is trying to make sure that all these little wagons are properly balanced and that their wheels are fine. And then of course get these couplings onto the 4Fs, and when I get the cogs in, that means I can run some more of the A4s and maybe another Princess. So lots of stuff to be doing. Oh, Alan Reynolds, nice of you to drop in. So I'll hang in with Alan for a while because he just made it by. So Alan, what's happening? You're keeping busy. I see you're getting into gardening as a career. And what's happening in Bangor, Tom? So you'll be building up quite a little store there, Alan, with your bridges and your garden flower arrangements, which look terrific. What else do you have planned there? Yeah, somebody just said, I just got a glimpse of it, steam ended in 69. You're probably right, because the line in the north side of the river was electrified by then, for sure. I just have this memory that being on a train heading down to London, and I have a recollection that it was steam. Could be wrong, might have been diesel. But this is it, the memory fades, or you only remember so many things or certain aspects, and it requires someone who's got a better history background in what went on in those days. Oh, pillboxes, yeah, they'd be easier to make, but all this type of work takes a little bit of initiative. And so, Alan, I'm just going to show you what I've been up to, and there's the factor is there telling Mrs. Brown that she's going to be moved to a new development outside of the city, and she's not too happy. You can see her there with her arms crossed, and the nurse here is saying, well, you know, your children need better living conditions, so, you know, we're going to tear this tenement down and move you. Look at all the dampness that's up on the roof there. It must be terrible inside. And indeed it was. So, as I said, I'm going to put some tin foil around here to act as the lead that people would remove, and touch a few things up, and then finish off the pavement, the concrete pavement, and then it's done. It took a little while for me to get it all finished, because one thing and another, there were so many things I had to do, and that kind of fell by the wayside. But yeah, very happy with the way it is right now. And you know, the thing is, I lived in a place like that until I was 12 years old. Two older sisters, and we lived in a room and kitchen with a toilet halfway down the stairs, shared with another 4 families and an old spinster. You know, cold running water, and you think back, we were really deprived, and it certainly was like the Dark Ages, really terrible. But we survived, as did most folks, and everybody was in the same boat, so that's life. Yes, Alan, I scratch built everything on there. I used the grey card that you would get on the back of foolscap paper, that type of stuff, and I had a diagram, a sketch, I'd come across in a magazine of the tenement building, and I laid it all out, and then the tiles those were slate tiles, and so what I did was I used black paper you get from the art store, the thin stuff, and I cut it all up and then sliced them part way through to represent the tiles, and I mounted them onto a Kellogg's box and finished that off today. So I was very happy with that. And what I might do now is build a few more, but only I'd maybe only build half of them, and that would allow me to put a few of them around. Now that I know how to do it, some shortcuts and what's the best way to go ahead with it. Yeah, thanks, Tom. A class 50, Clive, yeah. Yeah, well, as I say, you would probably know better than me. Because the only time I would see on a regular basis locomotives of that size was when I was in the city, and I would always cut through Central Station or Queen Street or Buchanan Street when I was much younger, and it was Buchanan Street my mother would take us to when we would go on a summer holiday somewhere up the east coast. So I would see there'd be A4s up there, but they were long gone in the 60s. So yeah, I would look up the guy on YouTube. Just do a search for uh, Sunderland's Northern Ireland WW2, and it'll come up. He travels around that part of the country. He's got his backpack and his drone, and he does these videos of the landscape, fabulous landscape. And he showed that mountain there. It's 1,700 feet high, quite stunning looking. I can't remember the name of it. I meant to make a note. Used to go to the Barras. Oh, what a place that was. Yeah. And Lewis's, yeah. Lewis's was a great store. Similar to the big stores down in England. And always had a great train section or toy section, as did Fraser's. I was always delighted when my mother took us up to see Santa Claus at those places, and up to the Barras for some bargains. If you need new sheets or pillowcases, stuff like that. Okay lads, well I'm going to sign off because I've got a few things to do. My wife's away this weekend and she gave me a to-do list, so I better get at it shortly. And I really appreciate you dropping by because I know you've got options. I know that you've got options, and I'm happy that you chose to spend an hour and a bit with me here at Partickhill Station. And I'll try and drop by everybody's website and say hi. Yeah, I mean the cat's away. You're dead right. You know, I usually tell her that I'm going to be doing a broadcast, and she leaves me alone for an hour or so. But there is always something to do, especially given that we were away for 10 weeks. It's a long time to be away, and it ends up with a big list. The Class 4750s was on the Glasgow to Craw until electoral, or to Crew, yeah. So that's Clive. That's probably it. Yeah, you're probably right. And you know, I'd like to get one of those Class 50s for that very reason. I'm going to keep my eye open for one. But I don't want. I'm going to wait until there's a train show and hopefully pick one up there. I've got the Class 47 there, the Queen Mother. It's a nice local, but I'd like to get another one. And your wife goes to Japan. I was in Japan. I'll just hang on to this conversation for a little bit. I was in Japan for one day. We were on a cruise, and the cruise stopped at Nagasaki, and you know, it's right in the downtown area there, in this big river estuary, and there's shipyards all over it. And that was all started by a Scottish guy back in the very early 1900s. And they've got a museum dedicated to him and what he built in that town. It's up the top of the hill, but they've got great streetcars that were donated by different European cities after the war to replace those that were destroyed in the bombing. And it is so interesting. You get on board and the conductor driver salutes you, and then he salutes you when you leave, and he's got white gloves on, and I thought it was so magical. And the architecture was just so interesting. Yeah, I'd like to go to Tokyo, and I took the bullet train in China for 1,300 kilometres at 303 kilometres an hour from Beijing to Xi'an. Charlie, Lima or Hornby, or Lima or Hornby, yeah, exactly. Yeah, Mystic. It's built into the surrounding hills. It is absolutely beautiful, and we took a ride on the streetcars, and then we wandered into all the little side streets, into all these temples that survived the bombing, and just an amazing place. And out in the estuary, they've got these enormous big shipyards. Where they build the really big ships out there. Yeah, terrific place. I was so happy that we went there. Konnichiwa, domo arigato. Yeah, it'd be great to go there. Anyway, guys, thank you so very much, as I say, for spending your time with me here at Partickhill Station, and those people out in YouTube who are watching in the background and don't participate in the chat. I hope you enjoyed this too, and arigato gozaimasu, yes sir, hey, as they would say. And yeah, thanks everybody that takes their time to support people like myself and others who like to make these videos, and you know how it is, and the big thumbs up and all that. And let's just see if I can get something in here. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, thanks very much. I really appreciate your time, as I said, and your continued support, not just for me but for everybody out there. And I, you know, to all the guys who are doing it, I know how difficult it is, and the amount of time and effort that you all put in, whether it's to sit with just one camera and chat all day long with people that come into the chat line. It is challenging and difficult, but it is so worthwhile and rewarding. And yeah, have a good night, everybody, and hopefully see you next Saturday, maybe before. I'll probably put another post up on YouTube on another topic, a visit to another model railroad station from our big trip, and we'll see you again here at Partickhill Station. Bye for now.